This business belongs to my mother. You stole everything from her. Amanda's voice echoed through my office as she stormed in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Behind her, a man in an expensive suit clutched a briefcase, looking every bit the stereotypical corporate lawyer. I'm Isabella Martinez, 42, and for the past 15 years, I've built Martinez Organics from a small farmer's market stall into a multi-million-dollar organic beauty empire. Now, my stepsister was here to try to take it all away. Mrs. Martinez, the lawyer began, placing his briefcase on my desk with practiced authority. We have evidence that the original concept and formulations for your product line were developed by Margaret Wilson, my client's mother. We're here to discuss transferring ownership back to its rightful. I held up my hand, cutting him off. Before you continue, there's something you both need to see. My voice remained steady as I reached for my laptop, though my hands wanted to shake with 15 years of suppressed anger. Amanda sneered, tossing her perfectly styled hair. What could you possibly show us? Mom told me everything before she passed away last month. How you stole her journal of recipes, how you took advantage of her kindness. I turned my laptop around, clicking play on a video file I kept safe all these years. The security footage was slightly grainy but clear enough. There I was 15 years younger, sitting across from Margaret in this very office when it was just a tiny rental space. $5,000, Yummy said in the video, pushing a business proposal across the desk. That's all I'm asking for. The farmers market sales prove the concept works. People love the products. Margaret's younger self picked up the proposal, barely glancing at it before dropping it back on the desk. Isabella, dear, this is worthless. Natural beauty products. Everyone knows real cosmetics need proper chemicals. You're wasting your time. I watched Amanda's face change as she heard her mother's voice dismiss my dreams so casually, but there was more. But these are your recipes, Yummy protested in the video. Don't you want to be part of making them successful? Margaret's laugh was cruel. Those old recipes, they're nothing but garbage I picked up from my grandmother. If you want to waste your time with them, go ahead. I want nothing to do with this foolishness. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably as the video continued, showing Margaret signing a document. And this paperwork? Yummy asked. Yes, you have my permission to use any of those old recipes. I'd be embarrassed to be associated with them anyway. Just don't expect me to invest in this nonsense. I stopped the video, the silence in my office deafening. That document she signed, it's a legal release of any claim to the recipes or business concept, witnessed by a notary who was just off camera. Would you like to see it? Amanda's face had turned an interesting shade of red. She was just having a bad day. She didn't mean. This was just the first video, I interrupted, pulling out a thick folder. I have 15 years of documentation. Every time Margaret mocked the business, every time she told people she was embarrassed her stepdaughter was playing with herbs instead of getting a real job. That is, until last year, when we hit $50 million in annual revenue. The lawyer was already packing up his briefcase, clearly recognizing a losing battle. But I wasn't done. You want to know the real irony, Amanda? 5 years ago, Margaret came to me asking to buy in, offered me $2 million for a 10% stake. I pulled out another file. I turned her down, but I recorded that conversation too. Would you like to see your mother trying to claim she'd always believed in the business? Why? Amanda's voice cracked. Why did you keep all of this? I leaned back in my chair, memories of those early years washing over me. The farmers' markets in the rain, mixing formulas in my tiny apartment kitchen, delivering orders from my beat-up car while Margaret and Amanda lived in luxury, mocking my efforts. Because your mother taught me something valuable the day she rejected my proposal. She taught me that the only person I could rely on was myself. So I documented everything, protecting myself from the day I knew would come, when suddenly, the business she called worthless would become something she tried to claim. But Mom said, Amanda started. Your mom said a lot of things, Amanda. The difference is, I can prove what she really said and did. I gestured to my office door. Now, unless you want me to show these videos to every business magazine that's been begging for the real story of Martinez Organics' founding, I suggest you leave. The lawyer practically dragged Amanda out, leaving me alone with the evidence of 15 years of preparation. I picked up my phone to call my attorney, knowing this wouldn't be the last attempt to claim what I built. But I was ready. I'd always been ready. Margaret might have thought those old recipes were worthless, but I'd known better, just like I'd known that someday someone would try to take it all away. What Margaret never understood was that success isn't just about having good ideas. It's about being willing to believe in them when no one else will, and about keeping really, really good records. The morning after Amanda's failed attempt to claim my business, I arrived at the office to find my social media notifications exploding. Amanda had gone on a rampage, posting a carefully edited version of events that painted me as the villain who had stolen her poor mother's legacy. Your stepsister is quite creative with her storytelling, my PR director, Sophia, said as she laid printouts of the posts on my desk. She's managed to get quite a few family members riled up. I scanned the comments beneath Amanda's posts. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly experts on my company's history, sharing invented stories about how Margaret had always planned to turn her grandmother's recipes into a business. Should we respond? Sophia asked, her finger hovering over her tablet. Not yet, I replied, reaching for my secure external drive. Let's see how far they want to take this. I didn't have to wait long. By lunchtime, Amanda had escalated to television, appearing on a local morning show with crocodile tears and a story about how her dying mother's last wish was to reclaim her stolen heritage. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Isabella, please be reasonable. Can't you give your sister something? For family peace? Family peace. That phrase brought back memories of my teenage years after he'd married Margaret. Every time she or Amanda had taken something of mine, every time they'd excluded me or mocked my dreams, it was always about family peace. I texted back, like when you asked me to give Amanda my college fund for family peace, or when Margaret convinced you to put the house in her name for family peace. He didn't respond. I pulled up the local station's website and clicked through to their contact form. Within an hour, their legal department would receive a comprehensive file of evidence proving every word of Amanda's interview false. Let them deal with the threat of a defamation lawsuit. Ms. Martinez? My assistant poked her head in. There's something you should see at the flagship store. I pulled up our security cameras on my laptop. Amanda was there, along with 3 other relatives, holding signs and telling customers how Martinez Organics was built on stolen family secrets. I almost laughed. If they wanted to make this public, I'd give them public. I pressed the intercom. Sophia, remember that documentary crew that's been asking to tell our company's story? Call them back. Tell them I'm ready to talk. All of it, she asked. All of it. 2 hours later, I sat across from a respected documentary filmmaker, surrounded by cameras. On the table between us lay the evidence of my journey, the original farmer's market permit, my first batch of handwritten formulas, and photos from those early days. Let's start at the beginning, the filmmaker said. Tell us about the first Martinez Organics product. I pulled out an old battered journal. This was my mother's, my birth mother's. She died when I was 12, but she taught me about natural healing. When my dad married Margaret 3 years later, I was excited because she said she shared that passion. She had her grandmother's recipes, just like I had my mother's. I opened the journal carefully. I asked Margaret to teach me her recipes, to help me combine them with what my mother had taught me. She laughed and said they were worthless. But she let me have them, signed them over legally because she thought I was wasting my time. And the first product? A healing salve, combining my mother's Evola formula with Margaret's grandmother's calendula infusion. I refined it, tested it, worked with herbalists to perfect it. Every step documented, every improvement recorded. I smiled, remembering those long nights of experimentation. It's still our bestseller. Your stepsister claims your success is built on her family's heritage. Her family's heritage that they threw away, I corrected. I have years of footage of Margaret mocking these recipes, calling them old-fashioned nonsense. But I saw their value. I respected the traditional knowledge while innovating and making it better. The interview continued for hours. I shared everything. The rejections, the struggles, the slow build from farmers markets to our first store. The documentation proving every step was mine, every innovation earned through hard work and dedication. As the crew packed up, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. You think you're so clever with your proof and your records. But what about the family? What about Mom's memory? I thought about Margaret's memory, How she tried to buy into my company once it was successful. How she'd suddenly claimed pride in our family business when magazines started calling. How she'd never once apologized for those early years of mockery and doubt. I texted back, "Margaret's memory is preserved perfectly in all those videos I kept. Would you like me to share them publicly? Let everyone see exactly who she really was." The response came quickly, "You wouldn't dare." But she knew I would. Just like I dared to believe in myself when no one else did. Just like I dared to build something from nothing, protecting myself every step of the way. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from the station's legal department. They were pulling Amanda's interview and issuing a retraction. The evidence I'd sent was concerning. I looked out my office window at the protesters below, still holding their signs about stolen legacies. Soon they'd learn what real legacy meant, not just old recipes in a book, but the courage to believe in them, the determination to prove their worth, and the wisdom to document every step of the journey. Margaret had taught me that last lesson well, though not in the way she'd intended. Sometimes the best teachers are the ones who show you exactly what not to do. The documentary aired 3 weeks later. I watched it alone in my office, a cup of herbal tea, made from one of my mother's original recipes, growing cold on my desk. They'd done a beautiful job telling the story. The contrast between my farmer's market beginnings and our current success was striking. But what hit hardest were the old security videos showing Margaret's constant dismissal of the business throughout the years. This silly little herb shop, she'd said in one clip from 10 years ago, walking past my first store. "I can't believe she's still wasting her time." Another from 7 years ago, natural beauty products. "Please, when is Isabella going to grow up and get a real job?" And finally, just 2 years ago, her attempting to buy in, "Darling, I always knew you had potential. Let's make this a true family business." My phone started buzzing almost immediately after the credits rolled. First came the text from Amanda. "You've destroyed Mom's reputation. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened an email that had just arrived from my father. "Isabella," it read, "I watched the documentary. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I should have supported you. I should have seen what Margaret was doing. Can we talk?" Before I could reply, my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Martinez, your stepmother's sister is here. She insists on speaking with you." I almost refused, but curiosity won out. "Send her in." Aunt Helen looked older than I remembered, her face lined with what looked like genuine remorse. In her hands, she clutched an old leather-bound book. "I found this while cleaning out Margaret's things," she said without preamble, placing the book on my desk. "It's our grandmother's original recipe book, the one Margaret claimed you stole." I opened it carefully. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, detailed instructions for herbal remedies and beauty preparations. But what caught my eye were the notes in the margins, written in a different hand. "Those are Margaret's notes," Helen explained. "From before she married your father, she tried for years to make these recipes work, to start a business. But she failed. She couldn't figure out how to modernize them, how to make them appealing to today's market." I looked up, understanding dawning. "That's why she was so bitter about my success." Helen nodded. "When she saw you succeeding where she had failed, well, you know, my sister, she couldn't handle it. But watching that documentary, seeing how you built everything from scratch, how you improved the formulas while honoring their origins," she wiped a tear. "Our grandmother would have been proud." After Helen left, I sat for a long time looking at the book. Finally, I picked up my phone and typed out a message to Amanda. "The flagship store has a beautiful display case in the entrance. I'd like to put your great-grandmother's original recipe book there, with a plaque honoring her contribution to natural beauty traditions. Not because you demanded it, but because it's the right thing to do. Her legacy lives on in every product we make, alongside my mother's recipes, my innovations, and 15 years of hard work." I hit send, then wrote to my father. "Coffee next week, just us." The responses came within minutes. "Amanda, I'll think about it." "Dad, name the time and place." A week later, we installed the display case. The old recipe book sat open to a page about calendula infusion, the same recipe I'd used in my first product. Next to it, I placed my mother's journal, open to her aita formula. Above both, a simple plaque read, "Honoring the wisdom of those who came before, while blazing new trails forward." That evening, as I was leaving the office, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a letter from Margaret, dated just before her death. Isabella, by the time you read this, Amanda will have made her move to claim the business. I put her up to it, my final act of bitterness. But the truth is, you succeeded where I failed. You took those old recipes and made them into something remarkable. I was too proud to admit it in life, but I can at least write it down in death. The business is yours. You earned it. Margaret. I carefully added the letter to my files, one last piece of documentation to keep safe. But I knew I wouldn't need it. The truth had finally come out, and no amount of bitterness could change what I built. As I turned off the lights in my office, I caught my reflection in the window. Behind me, the city lights sparkled, and somewhere out there, my mother, my birth mother, was smiling. Her daughter had taken her lessons about natural healing and built an empire, one that helped millions of people feel beautiful the natural way. That was the real legacy, not the recipes, not the formulas, but the determination to believe in something when everyone else doubted, and the wisdom to document every step of the journey just in case.